Last winter, Hitler's final gamble, cold open, 2 minutes. It is December 16, 1944, 3 in the morning. Somewhere in the darkness of the Belgian forest, a German officer checks his watch. The night is absolute. No moon, no stars, just cold. A cold that has teeth. Around him, 200,000 men wait in the dark. They have been waiting for months. They have been promised one last victory, one final push. They have been told that everything Germany lost can be taken back. Behind them, the command comes down. A single order radiates through the forest like a shock of electricity. Advance. In that moment, the largest German offensive since 1941 crashes across the Belgian border like a wave against a cliff. Panzer tanks, massive, unstoppable, punch through American lines as if they were paper. Soldiers who were sleeping in their bunks moments before are scrambling for their rifles. The Americans don't understand what's happening. No one expects this. Not now, not after everything. But Hitler is betting everything on exactly that, the shock of the impossible. This is the story of the last gamble of the Third Reich. A desperate, brilliant, doomed attempt to change the course of a war already decided. What happens in the next 10 days will reshape the final months of World War II, and it will echo through the decades that follow. Act 1. The World Before. 5 minutes. By the autumn of 1944, Adolf Hitler is a man running out of miracles. The Soviets are grinding westward, mile by mile, leaving nothing but ash in their wake. The Americans and British have liberated France. Berlin is no longer winning. It is simply trying to survive. Hitler is 55 years old. His hands shake. His left leg drags. But his mind, his terrible, scheming mind, is still sharp. And it is turning over a plan so audacious, so desperate, that even his most loyal generals wonder if he has finally lost touch with reality. The plan has a name, Unternehmen Herbstnebel, Operation Autumn Fog. The concept is breathtaking in its scope, a massive three-pronged assault through the Ardennes region of Belgium. Strike west, divide the American forces, cross the Meuse River, drive straight for Antwerp, the crucial port keeping the Allies supplied. With Antwerp in German hands, the logic goes, the Anglo-American forces will splinter. They will be forced to negotiate. Germany will have seized the initiative and perhaps, just perhaps, time to develop its secret weapons. Atomic weapons, jet fighters, wonder weapons that exist mostly in Hitler's imagination. The plan requires absolute secrecy, absolute surprise, absolute faith in the German soldiers' ability to perform the impossible one more time. By November 1944, the preparations are underway. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, the old Prussian aristocrat who commands German forces in the West, is skeptical. He knows the mathematics of modern warfare. Germany has fewer tanks, fewer planes, fewer men, but when he objects to Hitler, he is overruled. Hitler is convinced. He has always trusted his intuition, and his intuition screams that this offensive will work. 3 armies are assembled in secret. The 6th Panzer Army under SS Obersturmbannführer Sepp Dietrich, the 5th Panzer Army under General Hasso von Manteuffel, the 7th Army under General Erich Brandenberger. Together, they represent Germany's last reserve of strength, elite SS units, experienced veterans, new tanks rolling off the production lines. Across the lines, the Americans are oblivious. General Omar Bradley commands the American 12th Army Group. General Courtney Hodges leads the 1st Army. These men are confident. The war is nearly won. Germany is finished. The question is not whether they will win, but how quickly they can win. On December 10, 1944, Hodges issues an order. The front is quiet. The men can relax. Send more troops on leave. Rotate personnel. The winter will be quiet. 6 days later, the forest erupts. Act 2. The storm. 10 minutes. The first American soldiers to feel the German assault are the men of the 422nd Regiment, strung out in a defensive line near a small town called Losheim. They are frontline infantry, young men, most of them teenagers or in their early 20s. Many have never been in combat before. At dawn they see the fog parting, and in that fog, shapes. Dark shapes, massive shapes. The panzer tanks emerge like metal ghosts. Lieutenant Warren Springer is in a foxhole with his platoon when the first shell whistles overhead. It sounded, he will later remember, like a freight train falling from the sky. The earth convulses. Snow geysers upward in great fountains. He looks at the faces of the men around him, men he has known for weeks, months, and sees a terrible understanding dawn on them. They are about to die. Across the Ardennes sector, the same scene repeats. American soldiers wake to the roar of German guns, the heaviest concentration of artillery fire the U.S. Army has experienced since the invasion of Normandy. Planes, invisible in the low clouds, strafe the roads. German infantry, dressed in white camouflage against the snow, advance through the forest in waves. The Americans are caught. They have only scattered units. Their supply lines are far behind. They have no air support. The weather, that damned December weather, has grounded all aircraft. By nightfall, entire American regiments are surrounded, encircled, cut off from supply, cut off from retreat. General Bradley is in his headquarters in Luxembourg when reports begin trickling in. At first he thinks it's a local attack, a probing action, but the scale is too large, the coordination is too perfect. He realizes with a cold shock that the Germans have achieved something he thought impossible. Strategic surprise. He calls his boss, General Eisenhower. The Supreme Commander is in Versailles. When Bradley tells him the news, there is a long pause on the line. Eisenhower says only, "The damned Germans are really going to do it." And then he makes a decision that will reshape the battle. He orders the Third Army under General George S. Patton to pivot north immediately. Patton is famous for his aggressive tactics, his belief in rapid maneuver, his unwavering confidence. Patton, when told he must leave the line he is currently attacking to turn north and relieve the encircled units in Belgium, does not hesitate. "Swell," Patton says. "We'll go in with 3 divisions abreast. It should be like a knife cutting through a cheese." But it is not going to be like cutting cheese. The German offensive advances with terrifying momentum. In the first 3 days, German forces punch through American lines and advance 30 miles. Towns fall, crossroads are seized. The Germans are racing against a clock that only they fully understand. They need to reach the Meuse River, cross it, and drive to Antwerp before American reinforcements can plug the gap, and American air power, once the weather clears, can slow them down. In the small Belgian town of Malmedy, an American convoy is intercepted by an SS Panzer unit under the command of Major Joachim Peiper. The Americans surrender. They are lined up in a snowy field. And then, for reasons that historians still debate, rage at American resistance or simply the brutality that had become normalized in this war, Peiper's men open fire. 86 American prisoners are massacred. The frozen corpses are left in the snow. Hours later, American forces recapture the town and discover what has happened. The news spreads like wildfire through American units. One narrative hardens immediately. The Germans are committing atrocities. The Germans are animals. They must be stopped. The fear also crystallizes. If the Germans can do this to prisoners, what might they do to the civilians of Belgium? What might they do to liberated France? The battle becomes not just a military contest. It becomes a moral crusade. As Christmas approaches, the weather does not break. The snow falls heavier. The fog thickens. German planes with false markings attempt to land at American airfields. German patrols, dressed in American uniforms, try to infiltrate behind the lines to gather intelligence. Operation Greif, a special commando raid designed to sow chaos, achieves some success, but also creates massive paranoia. Every jeep is stopped. Every soldier is questioned. There are rumors that German paratroopers dressed as American soldiers are prowling the countryside. The fear is intoxicating. Men shoot at shapes in the fog. Friendly fire begins to claim victims. Meanwhile, the Germans push forward. But they are running out of fuel. The Polish town of Bastogne, held by the 101st Airborne Division and elements of the 10th Armored Division, becomes a crucial point. The town sits at a crossroads. If the Germans take it, their advance accelerates. If American forces hold it, the German timetable falls apart. The Germans surround the town. They demand surrender. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, the acting commander of the 101st, receives the German ultimatum on December 22nd. He reads it. And his response, a single word, becomes one of the most famous moments of the entire war. "Nuts," he says. His staff officers want to send a formal response, explaining the historical context of the word, the American military tradition behind it. McAuliffe waves them off. "Just send them the word," he says. And for 8 days, American paratroopers hold Bastogne against overwhelming odds. They are short on ammunition, short on food, short on medical supplies. Men are amputated without anesthetic, but they do not surrender. On December 23rd, the weather breaks. For the first time in over a week, the clouds part. The sky clears. And suddenly, overhead, American aircraft appear, thousands of them. Fighters, bombers, transport planes dropping ammunition and supplies by parachute into Bastogne. German generals feel the shift immediately. The moment of opportunity is closing. If they do not break through now, they will be trapped between American forces pressing from north and south with air power hammering their columns. The momentum in a single moment when the weather shifted swings. General George Patton's Third Army, racing north through terrible conditions, makes contact with the 101st Airborne on December 26th. The encirclement is broken, the tide is turning. But the Germans do not stop fighting. They simply shift tactics. What began as an offensive designed to achieve breakthrough now becomes a desperate fighting retreat. The battle rages on into January. The casualties mount. Young men freeze in the snow. Tanks clash in forest clearings. Villages change hands multiple times. St. Vith is fought over. Foy is contested. Houffalize becomes a tomb. By the end of the first week of January, it is clear to everyone, even Hitler, that the offensive has failed. Act 3. The Reckoning. 5 minutes. The numbers are staggering. When the Battle of the Bulge, the name the Allies give it because of the bulge the German advance creates on military maps, comes to an end in mid-January 1945, the costs are almost incomprehensible. The Germans suffered 100,000 casualties, among them approximately 15,000 killed in action. Many of those killed are teenagers, German boys conscripted in the final desperate years of the war. Boys who have known nothing but war their entire lives. The Americans took 81,000 casualties, over 19,000 killed. Another 15,000 missing or captured. The dead freeze in the Belgian snow where they fall. Many are not recovered until the spring thaw, when the villages emerge once again from winter darkness. The Battle of the Bulge becomes for the United States Army the bloodiest battle of the war in Europe. More Americans die in this single engagement than in any other European campaign. But the strategic outcome is never in doubt. The German offensive achieves none of its objectives. Antwerp is never threatened. The Meuse River is never crossed in force. The Anglo-American alliance does not shatter. Instead, it hardens. General Eisenhower, briefly shaken, regains his composure and makes a crucial decision. Rather than retreat, American forces will advance on all fronts. The Germans will be caught between the Americans in the West and the Soviets in the East in a vice grip that will only tighten. For Hitler, the failure of the Ardennes offensive has a particular psychological significance. He has bet everything on this gamble, and he has lost. The last reserves of German military power have been spent. The last hopes of the German people have been shattered. In the bunker in Berlin, Hitler retreats into himself. His advisors notice the change. The intervals of lucidity grow shorter. The episodes of rage grow longer. He speaks of the betrayal of the German people. He speaks of the army's incompetence. He speaks with increasing frequency of his own death. For the survivors on both sides, the battle etches itself into memory with the sharpness of frostbite. Sergeant Oakley Edwards, a young American soldier from Louisiana, survives the battle but never fully recovers from the cold. His feet are permanently damaged. He will walk with difficulty for the rest of his life, but he survives. Many do not. Major Joachim Peiper, the SS officer responsible for the Malmedy massacre, escapes the Ardennes. He will be captured later, tried for war crimes, and executed in 1946. His name will live in infamy. General Hasso von Manteuffel, the German general who comes closest to achieving a breakthrough, will surrender to American forces in May 1945. Unlike many Nazi generals, he will survive the war, live until 1978, and write extensively about his experiences. He becomes, in a strange twist of history, a consultant to NATO, the very alliance formed against Nazi Germany, helping American military strategists understand German tactics. General Patton, who proved himself brilliant during the Ardennes counterattack, will die in a car accident in Germany in December 1945, just 10 months after the battle ends. The Belgian towns destroyed in the fighting take years to rebuild. Bastogne, Foy, Saint-Vite, these names unknown to most of the world before December 1944, become synonymous with American courage and sacrifice. The weather that proved so crucial, the fog and snow that grounded American aircraft and grounded German hopes, is remembered by every man who lived through it. The cold was so intense that soldiers speak of comrades simply freezing to death in their foxholes. Frostbite claims more casualties than enemy bullets. In the frozen earth of the Ardennes, 19,000 American soldiers lie buried or missing. Thousands more will return home carrying wounds that will never fully heal. The psychological trauma of the Bulge, the shock of a sudden German offensive after months of fighting what was supposed to be an already won war, creates a wound in the American consciousness that lasts decades. Veterans speak of waking, even 50 years later, in a cold sweat. They speak of the sound of artillery fire that never really leaves their ears. They speak of friends' names they still remember, boys frozen in the snow of 1944. For Germany, the consequences are even more severe. The Ardennes offensive accelerates the timetable of German collapse. Unable to replace its losses, unable to manufacture new tanks at the rate they are being destroyed, Germany is hollowed out in the weeks and months following the battle. The Red Army, meanwhile, has prepared its own massive offensive. On January 12, 1945, while the Ardennes battle still rages in the west, Soviet forces attack along a front 700 miles wide. They advance into Poland. They threaten Berlin itself. Germany is now caught exactly as Eisenhower planned, between two advancing forces. Epilogue. 3 minutes. Today, the Ardennes is at peace. The roads through Belgium are no longer scarred by tank tracks. The forests have regrown. The small villages of Malmedy, Foy, Bastogne stand rebuilt, monuments to American sacrifice dotting their central squares, museums dedicated to explaining what happened here to the few tourists who venture to this corner of Europe. If you visit in December, the cold reminds you why every survivor speaks of it. The snow, when it falls, blankets the same forests where men died of frostbite, where tank shells shattered trees, where the last great German offensive collapsed into the winter darkness. The cemetery at Henri-Chapelle, a few miles from the Belgian border, contains nearly 8,000 American graves. Rows upon rows of white crosses and stars of David, all aligned with military precision. The average age of the men buried here is 22 years old. They died in a battle they didn't expect, in a war their parents' generation had fought just one generation before. The elderly veterans who survived the Bulge are nearly all gone now. But in the final decades of their lives, many returned to the Ardennes. They visited the places where they fought. They touched the monuments. They wept for friends they had not seen in over 70 years. One American veteran, in an interview late in his life, described what it meant to return to Bastogne as an old man. He stood in the snowy square where he had fought as a young private. He could see the building where a shell had taken off his best friend's leg. He could see the church where they had huddled for warmth during the siege. "I thought," he said, "about all the boys who never got to come home, who never got to grow old, who never got to see their children or hold their grandchildren, and I knew in that moment that the years I had been given were a gift paid for by their sacrifice." The Battle of the Bulge marked a threshold. It was the last time Nazi Germany could field an offensive army. It was the moment when the outcome of the war, already determined by mathematics and industrial capacity, became absolutely certain to everyone, victor and vanquished alike. In the month following the battle, the Soviets would liberate the concentration camps in Poland and Eastern Europe. The world would finally comprehend the scale of the Holocaust. American soldiers would cross the Rhine. British forces would liberate the Western territories. By May 1945, it was over. But in the snowy forests of the Ardennes, something had already been decided on December 16, 1944. Germany's fate was sealed. Its last gamble had failed. And the price of that gamble, paid by young men on both sides, echoed through the 20th century. The Ardennes remains today a place of pilgrimage for those who wish to understand what the Second World War meant. for those who wish to contemplate the cost of totalitarianism, the fragility of freedom, the terrible mathematics of mechanized warfare. The snow still falls, the cold still bites, and in the winter darkness, if you listen carefully, you can almost hear the voices of the men who fought and died here. Voices speaking in German and English, in accents of New York and Bavaria, of Texas and Berlin. All of them young, all of them far from home. All of them caught in a moment when history turned on the frozen ground of a small nation they had never heard of before they were ordered to die there. The Ardennes does not forget. History does not forget. And in the dark months of winter, when the world grows cold and the future seems uncertain, the lesson of the Bulge remains, that regimes built on lies, no matter how powerful they seem, cannot sustain themselves through the force of will alone, that the human cost of totalitarian ambition is always paid by the young, and that there is no such thing as a final gamble that changes the course of history, only the terrible, inevitable mathematics of power, geography, and the courage of ordinary men. The winter of 1944 was Hitler's last winter of conquest. All the winters that followed were winters of defeat.